Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Week 5 update for the Star City Blood Bowl League Season 4. Everyone wrapped up their Week 5 games with only 4 weeks to go. Things are kind of starting to shape up for who may be at the top for the playoff spots and who are kind of like on the fence in contention and definitely not out of the race. Um, so, I guess kind of looking at this right now, you're looking at the standings right now. The Wraith Serpents are currently in a three-way tie for first place with 8 points. They do edge out all the other competition currently because of their +5 net casualties and 13 casualties caused. They have 3 wins and 2 draws, still undefeated. The Birchwood Barons are also near the top there. They have a 1440 team value and they have a +5 net touchdowns as well, but a few less net casualties caused. They are 4 wins, 1 loss, and 0 draws. And then also with 8 points is the Night Terrors, which is an undead team. They have 8 points, 1400 team value, and a +3 net touchdown here. Not far behind is the Eshin Assassins at 7 points and the Cave Spring Spartans at 6. Both very well in contention for these top 4 spots for the playoffs, as well as the Skyrim Stormcloaks and Mad Hat Clover Clobbers, which are about a 1.5 game lead behind the number 4 spot. But like I said, we still have four weeks left. There's still a lot of time. And if they can win out, especially, they could be looking at a top 4 position moving into the playoffs. The Hazmat Hulks have 3 points. I think they got their first win this week. They have 1 win, 3 losses, and 1 draw. And then the Broad Street Ghoulies also have a win and 4 losses with just 2 points. And the Southwest Backstabbers are currently pretty beat up. And they currently have 0 wins, 5 losses, 0 draws, but they were able to get on the board again this week. And so I really think that coach is starting to get a hold of kind of the play here. It's their first time in the league, so it's no surprise that they're still getting a handle on the rules and the strategy that can come into the game. So kind of looking at this a little further, just as far as league leaders in general, not just this season. They have a few people who are contending for all-time leader in individual casualties. Currently, Codlack Whitemane is tied for most casualties caused in a league. He currently has 6, and that is the Yeti for the Skyrim Stormcloaks. And I think he has Block. He's got Mighty Blow. He's got Piling On now, and he's also got Claws. So he's pretty stacked up. He's valued at about 210,000 gold, probably one of the most valuable players from a salary standpoint in the league. Most individual touchdowns. Snip Silent Paw blew the most touchdowns scored in the league out of the water with still 4 games to go. And just through 5 games, he's able to rack up 11 touchdowns. That's over 2 per game. And so we're going to look to see if maybe the Cave Spring Spartans can put it into Silent Paw's record with maybe even his own death. So we'll see how that goes. Couple extra dead players this week that have kind of joined the league's dead rankings here. Lots of players skilled up still this week. And then just kind of looking at the update of the last 5 games, the week 5 games for this week. The Cave Spring Spartans were able to edge out the Skyrim Stormcloaks 2-0. The Eshin Assassins blanked out the Broad Street Ghoulies 3-0. The Southwest Backstabbers lost 1-4 to the Birchwood Barons. The Night Terrors and the Wraith Serpents, both 2 teams that are tied for near the top for league points, both also tied in their match 1-1. And then the Mad Hat Clover Clobbers were upset by the Hazmat Hulks 0-2. So I guess kind of looking at some of the statistics so far. Let me just narrow this down to just this season. There we go. So looking at this in a little more detail here, the the Wraith Serpents currently have a total net uh, touchdowns of a +5 here. They've allowed 3 touchdowns, which is tied for the least in the league with the Cave Spring Spartans. And so those two teams really have been showing good defense through these first 5 games. Um, as you know, on the opposite end, the most touchdowns scored by any team is currently tied between the Birchwood Barons, the Wood Elf team, as well as the Eshin Assassins um, Skaven team. And it just occurred to me that if Snip Silent Paw has 11 touchdowns, he's scored all but 1 touchdown for the Eshin Assassins. So being able to take him out would really do a number to their offense. Um, so far, looking at the most touchdowns given up so far is by the Southwest Backstabbers, who currently have a -12 net touchdown. Um, and so they're not playing the best defense, but again, they're new, so there's no surprise there. They've given up 14 touchdowns so far, and they've only scored 2. But we still have a number of teams, actually the Broad Street Ghoulies, the Hazmat Hulks, the Clover Clobbers, and the Clover Clobbers, and even the Skyrim Stormcloaks. All those teams currently have a negative net touchdown, meaning they're being outscored more often than not, and that's probably reflected in their record here. So looking at net casualties, currently right now the best net casualties is caused by the Night Terrors with a +11 net casualty, followed closely behind with a 3-way tie between the Wraith Serpents, the Clover Clobbers, and the Hazmat Hulks. All have a +8 net. The worst so far is actually the Eshin Assassins have a -13, followed behind by the Cave Spring Spartans, which have been out casualtied by 9 so far. Looking at the ELO rankings, currently it is actually saying that the best team in the league right now from ELO is the Birchwood Barons with a 236 ELO ranking, followed by the Night Terrors, then the Wraith Serpents, then the Eshin Assassins, then it's the Cave Spring Spartans, and then the next best team is actually the Hazmat Hulks behind there. So looking at that, that's kind of the ELO rankings of how they're lining up. Like I mentioned, there's a 3-way tie with 8 points for the top 3 teams. That's kind of where we are. There is actually one team in particular that has caused 4 kills, which is pretty crazy, which is the Night Terrors. They've caused as many killed players as the entire league combined, which is also 4. So we've had 8 dead players throughout 5 weeks. And so that's kind of how that's lining up so far. All right, so let's look at some players in particular. As I mentioned, Florian Bladesinger and Codlack Whitemane both have a 210,000 salary, which are the 2 highest paid players in the league. Looking at star player points, right now, Snip Silent Paw has a massive 48 star player points, which is double that of Florian Bladesinger currently. And he's only valued at 150K, so that's a huge difference there, probably has a lot different value. He's had a total of 11 touchdowns scored and 3 MVPs throughout the games. Florian Bladesinger, which is the plus strength plus agility war dancer, is doing some big things, has 5 touchdowns scored, 2 casualties caused, and an MVP. And Talia Brightleaf also is up there, but due to the massive amount of completions they're throwing up, which is 12 completions and 2 MVPs. And then followed right behind is actually Kyle from the Hazmat Hulks. Kyle is racked up 21 SPP, 2 MVPs, 4 total casualties, and 1 touchdown throughout the 5 games. So that's kind of a look at some of the top players within the league right now. As far as star player points goes. If we look at most touchdowns scored, it's no surprise that Snip Silent Paw currently has 11, which is double that of the next people in the league, which is Florian Bladesinger and Norin from the Skyrim Stormcloaks. Looking at completions, I don't think it's any surprise there. Also, that Talia Brightleaf has 4 times the completions of anyone else in the league. Actually, arguably 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Probably close to as many completions by Talia Brightleaf as almost the entire league combined. Um, Looking at interceptions, I don't think we've had any all season long so far. Casualties, um, Codlac Whitemane has currently the most casualties caused with 6, and Bubba Hotep is also not far behind with 5. Um, Most badly hurts caused is Codlac Whitemane. Most significant injuries caused is Old Blackthorn, the Birchwood Barons treeman. And looking at most kills is Gruel from the Night Terrors has killed 2 players. And so that's kind of, and then looking at MVPs, we have a couple people that have gotten MVP 3 times. Ray El Diablo Lewis with the Broad Street Ghoulies, and Snip Silent Paul has also gotten MVP 3 total times. So it's kind of wrapping up the standings so far. We're going to look at the upcoming matches coming up for round 6 here. So let me go to that. So round 6, let's see if I can get this to zoom in all right. There we go, round 6 here. So we're going to have the Cave Spring Spartans against the Eshin Assassins. That game, I think, is going to be on the 20th at the Eshin Field, the Star City Stadium. Which should be a really close game. The Spartans are going to look to do as much damage to the Assassins as they possibly can before they can get out on top. I know the Assassins play a very aggressive offense, and so the Spartans are going to look to hold the ball a little bit, and just work their way down the field, and hopefully work some rats off the field at the same time, including that of Snip Silent Paul, who will definitely have a target on his back for a number of the players on the team. The Race Serpents are going to take on the Backstabbers. Um, that game's probably not going to be very close, in my opinion, only because the Race Serpents have acquired quite a bit amount of star player points, and there's going to be a lot of inducements that the Backstabbers get. I think they get about 320,000 in inducements, maybe 350. And so I'm going to look to see that the Rape Serpents will probably run away with that one. The Stormcloaks are going to play the Clover Clobbers. This is a game that, um, you know, is going to be really, really tough for the Stormcloaks to pull out. I know that they're going to have to rely really heavily on the Yeti in order to take some of these dwarves out. They're going to be able to run faster, outmaneuver the ball than the Clover Clobbers, but there's so much Mighty Blow, so much guard. It's going to be really hard to get in those 2-die blocks, and a lot of the Stormcloaks, obviously the Norse, are going to struggle to have that block advantage they typically have over other teams. This is probably the match to watch for the week, which is the Night Terrors against the Birchwood Barons. I'd just be interested to see who wins this game. It's going to come down to, I mean, this is going to make a tie-break difference on one of those top folks probably with the 8 rankings. I would say that if one of these can win this out, they'll probably end up in a tie with the Wraith Serpents for first place. And if they happen to pull out a large net touchdown victory over the other one, then they may even edge out the Wraith Serpents and be the top team in the league following week 6. Last game is going to be the Broad Street Ghoulies and the Hazmat Hulks. I think these two guys are going to be matched up pretty well from a coach skill standpoint. And so this will probably be a really close game. It'll probably be a really fun one to watch because I don't think anyone's going to edge anyone out really quickly. And both these teams are very bashy, so they're probably going to go back and forth, and it's going to come down to who can hurt the other one first. So kind of my score predictions. I think that this game here, the Spartans against the Assassins, I actually think that's going to be 2-1 with the Spartans winning that one. Just because I think that the Spartans are going to be able to hold the ball, they're going to be able to bang into a lot of the the rats there. The rats don't have a lot of block. They don't have a lot of punching power. So unless they can stay very far away from the Spartans, their numbers will dwindle very fast. And the Spartans have, a lot of players with mighty blow, a lot of players with piling on, frenzy. So they're getting a number of extra blocks on people in case those blocks turn into dodges, on gutter runners or things like that. But there's going to be a lot of 3-die blocks and a lot of frenzy. And the assassins and the Skaven in general like to run the sidelines, do those things, and that's not really possible against the Norse as they kind of control those sidelines and narrow the field up. And so the Skaven are going to find themselves in a punching match that they're probably not really wanting to be in. Um, so like I said, I think that's going to be the Spartans going to win that one 2-1. The Wraith Serpents against the Backstabbers. This is going to be a game where Jack's just probably looking to survive. He's out strength. He's almost borderline, tied for speed. So I'm going to say that the Wraith Serpents are probably going to win this one 3-1. I do think Jack's going to score again. He's getting a lot better at that. And so I do think he'll be able to get a gutter runner in the touchdown area, but I do think the Wraith Serpents are going to kind of run away with this one a little bit, and it's probably not going to look as close at the end of the game as maybe the scoreboard might say it is. The Stormcloaks against the Clover Clobbers. So this is really going to come down to if Eric can use the Clover Clobbers to control the field, kind of set the pace. If they're able to receive, that would probably be very smart for them to do. Just so they could set the pace of the field, work their way down, just hammer on the Stormcloaks and punch in a late first half touchdown. And by then, maybe the Stormcloaks don't have enough players on the field in order to run a proper offense. And as long as they can make sure their positioning is good and don't give up any sidelines or anything like that where they can't catch up to them, they should be pretty good. If I was the Clover Clobbers, I'd look to target the Yeti. The Yeti's going to be running around clawing people and such. So as soon as they can get some garters on there, get a Troll Slayer on them so he can get a Dauntless roll and hopefully get that Yeti knocked down. I'd probably even use a lineman to try and foul him. Then that's going to do a lot better for them moving forward. Bob's just going to have to look to, hope he hurts some of the Clover Clobbers first. Use the Yeti to target some of the blitzers, and especially use his players to take out those Troll Slayers. The Troll Slayers are going to look to come after that Yeti and really keep the Yeti on the ground the whole game and kind of take him out of the equation. And whether he's hurt or just on the ground, it's going to be really tough for Bob. So just trying to control that aspect there. I think that one's going to end up probably 1-0 with the Clover Clobbers taking that one. Maybe 2-0, but I think that probably it's going to be 1-0. The Night Terrors against the Birchwood Barons. So this is a really close game. I'll kind of go in on this one a little bit just so I can see a couple things with each team because I haven't gotten an update on what their teams look like here lately. The Night Terrors have two whites with tackle, block, stand firm. There's a strength ghoul in there, which is going to be tough to knock the ball loose on. Dirty player, block. Okay, so pretty much if the Night Terrors want to take out the Wood Elves, they're going to have to essentially just beat them to death. I mean, the whites are going to have to go after the War Dancers in order to negate their dodge, take those War Dancers out, get them on the ground, use the zombies to foul as much as they can. And then luckily, I would carry the ball with Gruul. Gruul's going to have sure hands, so he's going to stop the strip ball. He's got plus strength, so best they can do is leap in Florian, get a 1-die block, and even then, the chances of knocking him down are pretty slim. It'll be a 1 in 3 shot of knocking him down in that 1-die block. I would look to just set the pace of your cage, moving about as fast as the mummies, work your way downfield, and just, use the whites to kind of terrorize a lot of the elves and use those zombies to foul like crazy. They have no shortage of extra people on the field, so I think that's kind of where they are. They're sitting at 1,400 team value, so they shouldn't have much trouble. Let's see. So this is the Birchwood Barons. So the Barons have a number of block players. Not nearly as much dodge as they probably would like. Um, but I think that they were looking for maybe some survivability in block and dodge. But I think that a lot of people now are starting to pick up tackle, and that's going to work through a lot of the catchers and the war dancers abilities. The whites are just going to have to mark the war dancers, get up in their face, prevent them from dodging away. The same with the catchers, and just hope they fail that 2+ dodge and burn through their re-rolls really quickly. Um, the treeman, he's probably going to be able to get held in place by the flesh go or the mummies. He'll probably be worked over by the mummies pretty heavily, is my guess, especially because I think the mummies do have block. Yeah, at least Bubba Hotep does. And so Bubba Hotep's probably going to be ganging up on old Blackthorn and trying to take him out. I think this one is probably going to be more bloody than you think. I know the Barons are going to look to score as quickly as they can, but stopping the Night Terrors is going to be really tough. I'm going to say that this one will end up 2-1 with the Night Terrors winning this one. And then lastly, the Broad Street Ghoulies against the Hazmat Hulks. It looks like the Ghoulies need to level up a player, but assuming that player takes, I would guess, block, um, then they have some block dodge that'll help with some of their survivability. They have one El Diablo werewolf, which is block and dauntless, which that's a really strange skill to take, in my opinion, but to each their own. Um, and then let's see here. What does the backstabbers have? So the backstabbers are pretty beat up for. Oh, I'm sorry, not the backstabbers. Hazmat Hulks. Hazmat Hulks are beat up. They're missing one black orc for the next game. They got a troll that's really busted up, but he's got guard. I'm trying to look at what else they got. Sure hands pass. They don't have a lot of skills, which is really surprising. I would just think that if I was the Ghoulies, I would use those werewolves to try and work claws through a lot of the players, use them to control the sideline with their frenzy, and they might end up edging this one out. I'm going to say that the Ghoulies are going to win this one 2-1 is kind of my prediction. So again, the Spartans are going to beat the Assassins, the Wraith Serpents against the Backstabbers. The Wraith Serpents will edge that one out. I think the Clover Clobbers will beat the Stormcloaks. I think the Night Terrors will beat the Barons. And with the Ghoulies, I think they will end up beating the Hulks, just mainly because they'll be able to control those casualties. I'm just kind of looking ahead some of the games that I think will be really fun to watch and see. I'd like to see how um, this bash on bash game between the Night Terrors and the Clover Clobbers go. Both teams are super bashy. The Night Terrors have really relied on their casualties to remove people off the field in order to get ahead, and I think the Clover Clobbers' armor and their presence of Mighty Blow and Frenzy and Dauntless is going to be cutting through a lot of the abilities of the Night Terrors to get multiple blocks, especially because I didn't think a lot of the Night Terrors had guard, and I know the Clover Clobbers have quite a bit. They have 3 guarders right now. They have a Troll Slayer with Mighty Blow and Pro. That's kind of also a weird one in my mind. I would have taken Piling On personally, but Mighty Blow, Mighty Blow. So there's a number of block sure hands. They're ball carriers. They have an agility 4 blitzer, which is a really great ball carrier. And so I think that that's going to be pretty tough for them to go against. And then looking at week 8, the game that I'd probably be most interested in there is probably. I'd like to see what happens between the Eshin Assassins and the Wraith Serpents at this point. I think the Assassins are going to be running around a whole lot, and if they can keep the Wraith Serpents kind of in place, um, kind of tie up some of those Saurus, they'll be able to move the ball really quickly across the field. And especially if they can start to get around the Saurus and things to terrorize some of those skinks, it'll be really hard for the Wraith Serpents to have a good offense going. And then the very last round of the year, I'd probably like to see, let's see here, probably Probably the Barons and the Wraith Serpents for the same reason as I want to see, them in round 8 is I just want to see how the Lizardmen handle some of the faster offenses. I know that they can outbash some of the bashy teams, but the question is whether they can outbash the fast teams and keep up with their speed. So that's really it for the week. You can go ahead and get your games in. The week started this week, so you'll have 2 weeks. So until roughly the 25th of April, which is my 35th birthday, you'll have to get in week 6. So get those games in, have a lot of fun, and we only have a few games left, and then we'll be looking to do something new, whether that's a sevens league or a stunty league. I think that's where we're leaning towards is the stunty league. And also stay tuned. We're going to have a lot of information coming up for the Big Lick Brawl. So I've been seeing some conversations with Star City Games who have agreed to host our event. And so the event's going to be capped at 32 people, according to what they can allow in the space. And so just stay tuned on those updates. We are going to pre-register, folks. So, and if you want to save your spot, it's probably going to be $30 for a ticket. That's going to include all the swag you typically get, plus you get 3 games of Blood Bowl. And so it's looking to be a really good time. It's the Blood Bowl 2016 rule set, and with a star player based theme. So it'll be a lot of fun. It was fun the previous couple years, and so I'm really looking forward to that, especially getting back to playing in person in these tournament settings. So everybody have a good rest of the week, and I will talk to you soon. Thanks.